Penguin Random House Audio presents How the Other Half Learns, Equality, Excellence, and the Battle Over School Choice. This is the author, Robert Pondiscio. Prologue. The leadership team at Success Academy Bronx 1 Elementary School is making its morning round of classroom visits. Principal Elizabeth Vandlick started the day by announcing deliverables for every teacher, which she and her assistant principals expect to see when they enter a classroom. Students should be on task at least 95% of the time. Teachers are expected to notice off-task behavior 100% of the time, and, without prompting, take corrective action to refocus and re-engage inattentive students. Every time. After each classroom visit, Vandlick and her team strategize in the hallway, rehearsing the feedback each teacher should get. One of the assistant principals goes back inside and whispers into the teacher's ear. Changes are made immediately, in real time, and without interrupting classroom instruction. After the walkthrough, the school leadership team huddles to discuss both teachers and students who need their immediate attention. The meeting concludes with a discussion of whole school improvements that need to be made. For tomorrow. 2 assistant principals take out their cell phones and start calling parents to ask for brief chats in person at that afternoon's dismissal to address concerns that have come up with their children. It's August 15th. The school year is 3 hours old. Chapter 1. The Tiffany Test. The person who has had the greatest influence on my career in education was not a professor, a policymaker, researcher, or a fellow teacher. It was a 10-year-old girl named Tiffany, a 5th grader in my class during my second year of teaching at PS 277, a low-performing elementary school in the South Bronx. Walk into any classroom in any struggling urban school in the United States, and you'll spot a child like Tiffany. Her eyes are on the teacher, paying careful attention and following directions. She is bright and pleasant, happy to help, and eager to please. Her desk is clean and well organized, her homework neat and complete. She has grown up hearing about the importance of education, she believes it, and her behavior shows it. She gets praise and good grades. She also gets screwed. Because she goes to a school where most of her classmates read and do math well below their grade level, Tiffany is, quote, not your problem, as an assistant principal pointedly told me when I expressed concern about how little of my attention she was getting. The message to a new teacher could not have been clearer. Focus your efforts on the low achievers, the disruptive, and the disengaged. Get them in the game. Tiffany will be fine. Since leaving the classroom, I've applied the Tiffany test to any new education reform initiative, policy prescription, or innovative teaching idea. Will this make it more likely or less likely that kids like Tiffany, promising low-income children of color in places like the South Bronx, will get what they need to reach their full academic and life potential? The answer rarely comes back in the affirmative. The broad thrust of education reform efforts, stretching back decades, has been aimed at closing achievement gaps between children of color and white and Asian children, between those who grow up in poverty and those who are more fortunate. The biggest losers in classrooms shaped by these well-intended policies are children like Tiffany. Children who are ready for new intellectual challenges pay a price when they sit in a classroom focused on their less proficient and less engaged peers. We can insist that the answer is differentiated instruction, personalized learning, or policies that valorize student growth over proficiency on standardized tests, making every student the teacher's problem. But these remedies are unsatisfying and naive, mere homilies. If the vast majority of America's nearly 4 million teachers cannot easily and effectively implement a proposal, it is no solution at all. It fails the Tiffany test. When you have a not-your-problem child sitting in your class in the age of testing, accountability, and gap closing, you understand that despite her good grades and rock-steady performance on state tests, she is subsisting on starvation rations in history, geography, science, art, and music, the stuff that makes education interesting and engaging. Her finish line, read on grade level, graduate on time, is the starting line for more fortunate children, including your own. Tiffany and the multitude of children like her represent the low-hanging fruit the typical struggling school leaves dying on the vine. But she is maddeningly, damnably, undemocratically not your problem. A question has gnawed at me ever since I was Tiffany's fifth-grade teacher. If we are committed to equity and social justice, if we wish to keep faith with the American dream and believe that education is the indispensable engine of upward mobility, should we attempt to serve all disadvantaged children equally and labor to close the achievement gap because that is what's fair? Or should we do all in our power to ensure that receptive and motivated students can reap the full benefit of their talents and ambitions because that is what's just? The latter, of course, is what well-off families effortlessly secure for their children, either by paying tuition to opt out of the public school system or by buying homes in affluent zip codes where their property taxes function as de facto tuition for excellent neighborhood schools. What might it look like? What might America look like if parents' ability to steer their children into the best possible school setting was not a function of money and privilege, but was something closer to the default setting in K-12 education in the United States? Give a focused, low-income kid a superior education, and you improve the odds that she is on the path to upward mobility and that her children will not grow up in poverty. Give that same kid a bland, good-enough education, and she's prepared mostly to march in place. A false dichotomy? Of course it is. The promise of an American education is excellence for all. But that promise has seldom been kept for those who are poor, black, or brown. Worse, our humane and laudable efforts to increase educational equity have made educational excellence largely available only to those with the means to purchase it. Low-income black and brown children who are ready for greater academic challenges or who are simply buying what schools are selling? Not your problem. After leaving my classroom, Tiffany, with her reliably solid performance on state reading and math tests, continued her dutiful march onward and upward, eventually moving with her mother to Pennsylvania, where she attended high school and a state university. Given the long odds at birth against the child of an Hispanic single mother ever becoming a college graduate, she is a success story. But I'm haunted to this day by what I know the data cannot show. Tiffany was neglected by me, by other teachers, and by the systems we have created to ostensibly benefit children like her. And that neglect was not an accident, it was policy. There's little doubt in my mind that had she attended my daughter's school, 2 subway stops and a world away on Manhattan's Upper East Side, she easily could have found her way to Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, or any of the top echelon universities whose admissions offices search and compete for students like her. From there, it's a short distance to diversifying the leadership class, America's ultimate achievement gap. With her limitless grit and desire to learn, her deep investment in education, and the devoted support of her hardworking mother, Tiffany, at age 10, had as much potential as any kid in this country. With luck, those natural gifts will fuel her rise for the next several decades. But if she becomes all that it was obvious to me she could be, sitting patient, alert, and expectant in my 5th grade classroom, it will not be because of what I and other teachers did for her. It will be in spite of it. People who write about education and our decades-long attempts to improve it invariably bring their personal interests, experiences, and biases to the task. The reader deserves to know mine, and something about the lens I brought to my year-long examination of Success Academy, the nation's most successful and controversial network of charter schools, and the lessons from it that we might apply to American education, particularly schools serving children growing up in poverty. In 2002, I began working as a 5th grade teacher in a low-performing South Bronx elementary school. My mid-career decision to become a public school teacher was closer to an impulse purchase than to answering a call to service. It was the year I would turn 40. I was the father of a 3-year-old daughter. I was working as the communications director for Business Week magazine after having served in a similar capacity for Time. The magazine industry had been disrupted by the internet and the bursting of the dot-com advertising bubble. In little more than a year, Business Week went from running a record number of advertising pages to losing money for the first time since the Great Depression. I was ripe for the plucking a few months after the 9/11 terrorist attacks when, riding the downtown N train home from Rockefeller Center, I sat across from an ad for the New York City Teaching Fellows, an alternative certification program aimed at luring mid-career professionals into hard-to-staff inner-city public school classrooms. "You remember your first-grade teacher's name," read the ad across the aisle. "Who will remember yours?" Fools rush.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?